Hi, welcome to another video. This is Mr. Chow from EnglishTuition.org. In today's video, we are going to talk about the final national exams, and then hopefully some of the students who are having trouble coming up with a revision plan will find this useful. First of all, let's talk about the PSLE English exam. And the PSLE is more recent, right? And it will take place sometime in September. Right, and I think the N-levels will even come slightly before that, also in September, right? But let me just talk about the PSLE first before we move on to the older students and talk about the N-levels and the O-levels. I think if you're feeling a bit lost, you might want to ask yourself, where do you stand, right? So you can actually get some feedback just by doing some revision papers. I mean, the full paper itself, paper 1, paper 2. Right, so for my students, they already went through another round of mock assessment, and then they have prelims coming up, and so they're going to get quite a bit of feedback. And between now towards exam, we will still have time for maybe one more round of practice. So it's very important that you know where you stand, so that for the final 7-8 weeks, okay, that will the feedback that you get will help you to prepare, right? Hopefully what you learn in this video will help you do something that is fruitful, right? And will help you boost your scores for the PSLE English examination. So I'm sure on your mind, you're thinking, right, what's next going forward? And I know what are the final steps that you can take for the last 8 weeks, right? I believe now, the time for talking is over, and the time for doing, right, putting your head down and doing and practicing and listening to the teaching, that's the time for that, right? So I don't think we have a lot of time to keep talking about motivational stuff, encouragement and stuff. That time is over, right? So you have just a few more weeks before you go sit for the exam. You either do it now or you don't, right? So for those already scoring, or for those still scoring AL 7 and 8, it means that you're still failing quite badly. So for this group of students, I would suggest and highly recommend that you focus on the basics, right? And just set a target for yourself that's still achievable. For example, like trying to get at least a pass, right, for the MCQ, which is the booklet A. If you cannot even pass your booklet A, then I think you have a huge problem, right? So focus on the grammar, right? Go through the MCQ assessment book again, right? Topic by topic. Focus on the simple tenses, past tense, present tense, and try to pass, at least for the MCQ. Now, if you're already scoring AL6, and AL6 is a funny grade because the range is very large, right? 45 to 64. And so I divided this grade into two parts, right? If you're scoring the lower part of AL6, which is 45 to 55, I suggest practicing components like grammar close, right? Still, in my opinion, that's considered MCQ because you're given helping words. And you can also continue to practice editing exercise, which is worth 12 marks, right? Just to do some basic grammar exercises and spelling, right? And you can try going for that, as well as some of the easier questions for the comprehension, and try to consistently score well for the easy questions and don't make any careless mistakes. And then you might find yourself in the upper end of AL6. And the upper end of AL6 is like between 56 to 64. And if you're already scoring 60s, I don't believe you're the same standard as somebody who is scoring, in the 40s. All right, but on paper, both of you will still get the AL6 on your results slip. All right, so only you know, right, how strong is your language. Okay, so for students scoring in their 60s, typically they can write, right? They can write, relatively decent sentences, but still unstable. Okay, so for these students, they can move on to some of the more difficult components and continue to practice sentence synthesis and try not to score 0 for that, right? Yes, students are still scoring 0 for sentence synthesis. And try to figure out how to do better for the open-ended close for students who are already in, getting the 60s. Okay, if not, just follow the recommendations as given in the video. If you're already scoring AL5, right? AL5 is scoring 65 to 74. So imagine scoring into the 70s, right? 70s is actually not a bad grade. It's a pretty decent grade. So what you want to do is to continue to strengthen your vocabulary, okay, as well as the grammar rules, so that you don't make any careless mistakes. Now, actually, in the course of my teaching, just to share some experience, students who are scoring AL5 and are aiming to get AL4, usually they already have the knowledge and can do well. It's just that sometimes they are still forgetful about some of the finer points of the exercises, right? For example, if you're supposed to put had after the connector hardly had, and then they start to make certain careless mistakes along the way, right? And then they end up dropping down to AL5. So if you belong to this group, just make sure you try to eliminate all those careless mistakes, right? And do more practice, right? The practice can help you become really more familiar with the exercises, and you're more aware of the finer points, and hence you make lesser careless mistakes, okay? And for those already scoring AL4, you already possess a relatively strong foundation and you have something to work with. For these students, I highly recommend that you refine your work, look out for the common mistakes that you tend to make, and then aim for AL3. And AL3 is 80% and above, right? And which is a pretty good grade, right? For those students who can get 80%, like close to perfect score already, right? It means paper 1, paper 2, oral, everything, you are near the top 20%, right? So that's a good grade to aim for. And I've worked with a student who, when he practices or when he practiced, he had never gotten AL3 before and always hover between AL4 and even AL5, right? And he did past year papers from all the schools. He did 10-year series and never got AL3, but in the end, his final grade is AL3, right? And we continue to help him to refine his work so that he can obtain a better score, which he did, all right? Now, for those of you already scoring 80s and above AL1 to AL3, don't be complacent, because a simple mistake like writing out a point for an essay, right, can, you can see your scores plunge, right, from AL1 to AL3 to maybe even a 5 or a 6, right? To get writing out a point is an immediate failure, right? I say this not to scare you, but hopefully, okay, is to get you to have the right mindset, right? And you can keep on practicing, so that continue to work hard, so that you can stay on your toes and be on top of your paper, right? If you grow complacent, you're going to relax, you're going to rest, you're going to grow careless, right? And all that potential is there. You've really proven that you can get AL1 to AL3. Don't grow complacent, don't grow careless, right? And you're going to throw the good grade away. So if that's said, I hope PSLE students, right, you know where you stand and you know where to go from here on. Okay, hopefully you can get a grade that is better than your current grade. All right, with that, let's move on to talk about the N levels and the O levels. So once again, you want to find out where you stand. So go back to your 10-year series, mock assessment, and some of you have the prelims coming up, right? And the prelims will be a good feedback for yourself as well. And then for O-level students, usually I tell my students just take it as practice, because after your O-levels will likely supersede the prelim score. But that's not to say that the prelim result is not important at all. In the event that you can't sit for the O-levels, maybe there are some special circumstances. The educational institutions may want to look at your prelim score. Who knows, right? I don't know, right? So take the prelims seriously. In any case, you want the prelim scores to come back to you and give you reliable feedback. So if you don't do your best, you are not going to get reliable feedback. Okay, you're going to get a mixed bag of feedback, right? That is confusing, right? It's not going to be helpful to you. So whatever you do, try to do your best, and that's where you know where you stand. And so again, like PSLE students, you might also be thinking what's next going forward, and you have the final steps for figure out the final steps for the last 8 to 12 weeks, depending on whether you're taking the N levels or the O levels. All right. So if you're still scoring below a C6, right, my advice is to get extra help immediately, right? I say this so that you should actually feel anxious at this late stage, because time is running out and you're still failing, right? Get some external help, right? From your parents, from your tutors. You know, if there's a crash course that you can sign up, go and talk to your parents. They will be able to help you out, all right? So, you know, it's always good to have people supporting you, right? If you're still failing, right? Go and set up consultations in your teacher, right? The last thing you want to do is to do nothing, right? And then just admit that you're going to fail. Okay, so if you're not going to seek the help, there might be a good chance that you may fail. So for those who are scoring C5 to C6, C5 not so worrisome, but C6 you're still at risk, right? Because you drop a little bit, you still end up failing and get a D7. And I've seen happening to a couple of my students, not a lot, right? Because most of my students actually end up getting B3, right? You've been following my previous video, you know that that's the profile of students that I work with. So if you find yourself still in this range, keep working on the easier parts of the paper, like your editing, your situation writing, to make sure those scores stabilize, right? And try to get a confident pass, meaning you must aim for at least a C5 and above. So if you aim for a C5, you drop, you still end up getting a C6. But if you're getting like 50, 51%, well, then that is very dangerous, okay? And just like those who are failing, you might want to seek some external help, all right? And for those scoring B4, and I think B4 is a strange grade because it's somewhere in the middle. And as far as I'm concerned, I think that your foundation is there, but somewhat unstable, right? And there's still work to be done on your foundation, right? Maybe the writing techniques are not very stable yet, your grammar is not very stable yet, and you keep making careless mistakes, sentence structural errors, and so on and so forth. It's not that you cannot understand English, right? You can still read and write, right? You can still listen and speak, but in terms of using the language, you're still not very good at that. So continue to practice, and then from your mock assessments, the 10 series, and so on and so forth, try to figure out how to get to a B3. In other words, focus on the weaker areas, right? And find out how to boost the scores, right? So if you're having problems with, say, the narrative comprehension, for example, you always tend to fail that component, but your non-narrative is what's pulling your scores up. So you might want to zoom in on the narrative comprehension and get some extra help, okay? And for those already scoring A1 to B3, and especially for those scoring B3, right? You are already considered proficient, but for B3, you want to aim higher, right? And A still looks better than a B. Okay, so what you want to do is you just keep practicing past year papers, write more essays, get your teachers to mark, get your tutors to mark, right? Get more feedback so that you can get more consistent scores. Now, a lot of times the difference between A and B3 is the refinements, right? How you refine your writing, for example, how you refine your vocab during the oral, right? So now is a good time to iron out the kinks, and you want to work on exam strategies and choose a strategy that gives you the best chance of scoring well, right? For example, I always have strategies for all my students, and I take into account not just their level of language, but also their personality and their tendencies, right? Because you want a strategy that fit your profile, right? That play to your strengths, and not all strategies will be the same for every student. Okay, so I can't really give you a very specific strategy in this video because I don't know you, right? You know yourself best. You know which areas you're strong in, which areas you're weak in, and you want to devise a strategy that allows you to, work on the paper, right, and focus on your strengths, right, and try to hide all those weaknesses, right? You don't want to choose an essay question that you're not very good at, for example. Like you want to spend more time on certain parts of the paper because you feel you're stronger on those sections. Okay, so but yeah, you want to aim for A for those students going for distinctions, right? I think the overall strategy is that there's no choosing. You need to be good at everything. Okay, B3, maybe you can still fumble a little here and there, and that drops you down to B3. But if you want your A, you have to master all 3 parts of the paper, right? 3 parts meaning paper 1, paper 2, and the third part is your oral and your LC. Okay, score well for all 3 to have a good chance of scoring an A. And with that said, we have come to the end of the video. Hopefully you'll find some of the tips to be useful, and maybe spark up some ideas on how to make full use of the final 8 to 12 weeks for your revision for the upcoming National English Examination. And with that, thank you very much for watching the video. And if you have the intent to sign up for face-to-face lessons, maybe next year or what, right? And you're watching this video in preparation for a future national exam, and intend to sign up for lessons, then please visit englishttution.org for more details. All the schedule, the fees are there. And again, I think it's a little bit late for the O-levels online course now, right? But for next year, right, or for future batches who are taking the O-levels, you can consider signing up for the O-levels online course, which is available now. Again, details at the website. Do remember to leave a like and a subscribe to support this channel, right? So that I can continue to make free videos just like this one for you. All right, so with that said, I'm signing out now, and I will see you again soon in the next video. Bye bye.